mocked his devotion while cheating behind his back. He made sure I'd pay. I made fun of his trust and love for me while sneaking around, and my husband went out of his way to make sure the consequences were unbearable. For privacy, addressed me as Emily and my husband as Harold. We'd been married for 5 months when this neighbor moved in, about 3 months into our marriage, and ever since, he's been making moves on me. Let's call him Gary. Whenever he made advances at me, I turned him down immediately, but he kept trying from time to time. It was becoming hard for me to resist because Gary would buy me gifts, follow me around, and speak in such a smooth way that was so charming. All these made things hard for me because he was becoming more irresistible. I didn't want to cut him off completely from my life because he was everything I wanted in a man, and despite all his unwanted advances, he was undoubtedly a good man and a good neighbor, so I didn't want the fact that he had feelings for me to blur out that side of him. And that's why I couldn't totally reject him, as much as I had to say no to all his moves. I didn't want to sneak around or cheat, and that's why I brought up the topic of an open marriage to my husband. I know it would sound stupid and dumb to bring that up in a marriage that's just 5 months old, so I found a more careful way to address it. And I know most of you would judge me or think I never really loved my husband, but I do. I loved him to the point that I pitied him. He is a sweet man, but he's like a girl in love, and I'm sure no woman would want that. Without a doubt, he was devoted to me, and he showered me with his love. But I saw his devotion as a weakness. It was giving feminine energy, and that energy helped me stop feeling connected to him in certain ways. There's nothing cute or attractive about a feminine man, a man who would text me long emotional paragraphs claiming to be worried about me just because I didn't pick his call, who would stand quietly in a room while someone disrespected him and later tell me it's not worth the fight, who apologized first even when he wasn't wrong, and who always asked, "Are you upset with me?" in the softest tone like he was scared of my answer. A man who was so soft-spoken and did everything in his power to avoid difficult situations. He couldn't even fight for himself, and always loved to resolve things. I used to laugh at how he'd rush to my side for every little thing, and how his eyes softened when he spoke to me. That's why I'd always tease him and brush off his compliments like crumbs from a table. I wanted a man who was hard, untouchable, and unpredictable, and Gary was that man. That's why I wanted a way to be with him, without having to sneak around. You might be wondering why I married my husband then, if I saw him that way. I did it because I loved him. I thought he was just a sweet man who loved his wife dearly and would do whatever she wanted, not knowing he was a weak man with no backbone, who preached peace as an excuse not to challenge any situation, like the time I got into a shouting match with our neighbor because she parked too close to my car, and instead of backing me up, he walked over smiling, shook her hand, and said, "Let's all just get along." Even the time I wanted him to confront a waiter for getting my order wrong, and he told me it wasn't worth ruining someone's day over a plate of food. Or how, whenever I told him about a coworker I didn't like, instead of agreeing with me or telling me I was right, he'd say maybe they're going through something, as if my feelings didn't matter. In his mind, that was maturity. In mine, it was weakness. And to him, I guess it's wrong of me to see things that way, but I didn't want a man who folded so easily. So I had always told him he was too weak for my liking, then went out of my way to make him do things for me, so I could have a laugh. The reason I was falling for Gary was because he was masculine in every sense, physically, emotionally, and otherwise. That's why I brought up the open marriage topic in a fun way that wouldn't create suspicion. I purposefully put on a movie with that kind of theme, a couple who decided to open their marriage. And as we were watching, I casually asked him what he thought about it, and if he would ever consider something like that. I made it seem like I wasn't talking about us at all, and was only just curious about the plot. I even laughed at certain scenes, making small comments about how at least they're being honest, or it's better than sneaking around, planting little seeds without making it obvious. But he was clearly not into the idea. His face went tight, and his answers were short, and he kept his eyes on the TV like he didn't even want to think about it. So I had to come up with something else, because I didn't want him to see it as me wanting another man. I didn't want to be the one to cross that line and be looked at like the villain. Also, I didn't want his boring, colorless lifestyle to affect mine, so I arranged for some hot sorority girls to come around and seduce him. I found them through a friend's cousin who promised they could turn any man's head, and didn't mind playing along for the right price. I told my husband they were offering to clean the house at a huge discount, just starting out and looking for experience. He bought it without a second thought. Then I lied that one of my friends had just texted me saying she needed my help, that it was an emergency and I had to go right away. I made sure to look distracted, glancing at my phone like I was reading urgent updates and pacing a little to make it believable. I was playing on his kindness, the very thing he prided himself on. He loved helping people, always ready to drop whatever he was doing if someone needed him. It didn't matter if it was a friend, a neighbor, or a stranger on the street, he'd be there. I knew that. I knew exactly how to use it. So when I told him my friend needed me for an emergency, he didn't question it for a second. He probably even admired me for rushing to help. That was the beauty of it. He saw compassion. But I saw an open door. Before leaving, I told him the girls would be coming around for the cleanup, and he should handle everything. I grabbed my bag and walked out, my mind already shifting to the real reason I needed to be away. I wanted to give them space, let things happen naturally without me hovering. My plans felt fragile with my presence because they'd collapse if I was in the same room. I needed something on him, proof, leverage, anything I could hold over his head. If I could catch him in the wrong, I could use it to keep him in place while I did what I wanted. That way, I wouldn't have to feel guilty, and he wouldn't have a right to feel betrayed. I met up with the girls first, gave them clear instructions on what to do and how to go about it. I told them not to make it look suspicious and to act natural, but of course they already knew exactly what to do. They'd done this kind of thing before. Once we were done talking, I found a nearby spot to chill while waiting for my plans to quietly set themselves into motion. I had already placed a camera in the room to capture everything, but I still needed them to find a way to let me witness it live as it was happening. Seeing it in real time would be different, more satisfying, and it would leave no room for doubt. It was also insurance, just in case the hidden camera didn't catch everything. I wanted eyes on it from every angle because if this worked, I'd have exactly what I needed to keep him in check. So one of the girls had her phone on video call with me, angled so I could see the living room. They showed up in tiny shorts and clingy tank tops, moving slowly when they bent over, brushing against him by accident, and laughing at everything he said. I watched one spill water on herself and strip down to her bra before asking for a towel, while another leaned in close to hand him something, letting her hair fall against his arm. They kept complimenting his build, his voice, and his smile, making it obvious they weren't there to scrub floors. But my husband didn't take the bait. He kept his tone polite, stayed on the other side of the room, and didn't so much as look twice when one of them bent over in front of him. I was frustrated to see that my plans failed. Later, they told me they'd tried everything short of dragging him to the bedroom. That seriously made me reconsider. He was either a pussy or he wasn't really attracted to women, and my thoughts on the matter just amplified more and more every day. Whenever he'd use a straw to drink milk from a cup instead of drinking from the jar directly, and whenever he'd speak in a low tone even when we were arguing, all that just made me even more irritated. Like I started, it was like he had this feminine energy that I couldn't explain. I didn't care anymore, and I couldn't wait around anymore for him to prove himself. I went ahead and accepted Gary's advances. I didn't want it to seem like I have been looking forward to having him or letting him have his way, so I let it start with lingering touches and late-night messages, but soon we were finding any excuse to see each other. Sometimes in his apartment, in his car, even once in the storage room of our building. We were hooking up as frequently as possible. Gary was a manly man. He didn't ask for my opinion on things. He just did what he felt like. If he wanted me on my knees, I was on my knees. If he wanted me up against the wall, that's where I'd be. There was no pathetic, "Is this okay?" or "What do you think?" He simply took, and I loved every moment of it. On Father's Day, my husband called me, asking where I was, because I had told him I wanted to celebrate him, even though we didn't have a child. I was in Gary's bed with my clothes on the floor, and his hand gripping my thigh while his tongue worked between my legs. I answered the call, my voice trembling as I tried my best not to moan, telling my husband I was just out running errands while Gary smirked against me, deliberately slowing down just to make it harder for me to speak without giving myself away. When I hung up, I didn't feel guilty, not even a flicker of it. If anything, I felt a rush. The thought that my husband was probably smiling to himself, thinking I was out buying him some thoughtful gift or setting up a surprise, made me smirk. He was so certain of my loyalty, so blinded by his own devotion, that it almost felt pathetic. In my head, I could already picture him, sitting on the couch, maybe wearing that old sweater I hated, and waiting for me with that soft look in his eyes, the one that said I was his whole world. And the more I pictured it, the more I wanted to ruin it. Gary was still between my legs, and I actually laughed, because here was this man at home who'd do anything for me, and I was giving myself to another man without a second thought. I didn't see it as betrayal. I called it balance. Gary gave me the thrill and the masculinity I craved, while my husband gave me stability. But to be honest, I knew I wasn't balancing anything. That was me mocking him. Because every kiss from Gary, the touches, and all time I let him take me without hesitation was all a quiet middle finger to my husband's blind devotion. After our intimate moment, we laughed about how stupid and blinded my husband was, and I even playfully thanked my husband for making what me and Gary had to be more thrilling and amazing. During my husband's company party, I pretended to be sick so I wouldn't have to go. He left looking concerned, reminding me to rest and drink something warm, and I nodded, hiding my smile until the door closed. As soon as he was gone, I texted Gary to come over. He didn't waste time. Within minutes, he was at my place, and his hands were on me before the door even clicked shut. Next, we took off our clothes, and as we were in the middle of it, my back was arched over the arm of the couch. Gary's breath was hot against my ear, and that's when the door suddenly opened. I froze, hearing the sound of keys hitting the table. My husband's voice followed, soft but rushed, calling my name. He'd left the party early because he was worried about my health and walked straight in to find me there, tangled up with another man. His eyes went wide and his face was pale. I could feel the shock hit him before the anger even had time to surface. My husband pulled out his phone, his hand shaking, and aimed it at us. He had this scary look. His eyes were cold, fixed, and almost unreadable, and for a second I thought he might throw it at me or do something violent. But then, as expected, he didn't say a word. He just turned around, walked out, and closed the door behind him. I don't know where he went, but I didn't run after him. I wasn't even surprised he ran away. That made me laugh. I laughed so hard because I thought my husband's reaction was pathetic. That day, Gary didn't join in mocking my husband. He just quickly grabbed his clothes and wore them. He told me that we should give each other space for the meantime, but I told him not to bother. My husband couldn't lift a finger, so there was nothing to be scared of. I wasn't even worried about my marriage for a second. I knew my husband wouldn't dare try to divorce me. He was so into me, and there was no way he would want to get rid of me. I was the only good thing in his pathetic life, and he knew it. My husband didn't sleep at home that night. I don't know where he went, but he didn't return. The next morning, I went to the mall to pick up some things. At first, I thought I was imagining the lingering stares and the whispers as I walked past. I kept my head high, pretending not to notice, until I got to the checkout counter. The cashier was a woman in her 40s. She looked me straight in the eye and asked, "How could you?" I was confused. I didn't get the question at first. Apparently, my husband had gotten drunk the night before, stumbled into the store to buy more alcohol, and kept telling anyone who would listen that I'd cheated on him, with details. And now, it became everyone's business, especially given how much they always claimed love and admired my husband. I just covered my face in shame as I ran out. My plan was simple: go to my husband, scold him for embarrassing me in public, watch him whimper and plead for my forgiveness like he always did. But as I was walking back into the neighborhood, I noticed people standing in small groups, whispering, their eyes darting between me and something on the wall, and that's when I saw the poster. Not even one, several of them, all over the street. It was me and Gary in an intimate position, his hands on me, and my face tilted back in pleasure. A full-color print blown up for everyone to see. Everything looked like we were advertising nudes, as if we were some kind of cheap show for sales. My chest tightened, and my stomach twisted. I was beyond embarrassed. People were muttering, pointing to the poster and shaking their heads. I rushed to the wall, yanking the paper down. My hands were shaking as I stuffed it into my bag. But every corner I turned, there was another one, stapled to a pole, taped to a shop window, even pinned to the notice board near the bus stop. It hurt so much that I started crying. That was my neighborhood. People I saw every day. People who had smiled at me, greeted me, looked up to me, and even asked about my marriage. Now they were looking at me like I was filth. The picture was from the day before, the exact moment my husband had walked in on me and Gary. He must have snapped it on his phone without us realizing. And now, the same man I thought couldn't lift a finger had plastered it everywhere for everyone to see. I ripped each one I found, my fingers were sore from pulling at the tape, and my throat was dry. I couldn't believe it was my husband that did that. I kept telling myself it couldn't be him. My husband was too soft and too passive. But with every picture I tore down, that excuse felt thinner. I wasn't heartbroken then, not yet. I think I was shocked, because I'd been wrong about him all along. I stormed into the house, my bag still stuffed with the crumpled pictures. I knew he had returned home, so I walked straight in, ready to tear into him, to demand why he'd done it, and watch him stumble over an apology like he always did. Because it could have been that he let his excessive emotions take over him, and I was sure he was going to regret his actions once I confronted him. But he was sitting in the living room with a calm expression, his phone in his hand, scrolling through it like everything was all right. I half expected him to be sulking, but he wasn't, and he wasn't even surprised to see me. I stood there, waiting for him to look up first, but he didn't. So I dropped the pictures onto the coffee table, the stack sliding across the table. He glanced at them like they were nothing, then went back to his phone. That's when I realized something was off. Normally he would have rushed to me, tried to explain, and begged me to understand. But this time, he did nothing. He wasn't flustered, and he wasn't even nervous. What was more shocking was, he didn't even pretend to be sorry. I refused to believe what was happening in front of me. I had to tell myself that he was just in shock, that any second now he'd crack. But the longer I stood there, the more I felt it. This wasn't the same man. This was someone who'd already decided something, and I wasn't sure I liked where that decision might lead. I became scared, to the point that my voice was shaking when I demanded answers for the humiliation he had caused me. He didn't say anything. He just slid divorce papers across the table. My eyes widened when I recognized what it was, and I immediately dropped to my knees, begging him. This man watched me cry. He didn't say a word. I cried for nearly 40 minutes, begging, making excuses, saying everything I could to justify the situation, and pleading for a change of heart. But he just sat there, silent, until finally, when he decided he couldn't look at me anymore, he got up and walked away. I crumbled to the floor. I couldn't believe my husband was making me pay for everything I'd done to him. I couldn't believe he was the man I married. That same sweet man who wouldn't dare see me cry or get sad was now the one reducing me to tears. I couldn't believe he made me pay so gravely for my sins. Now I can't even step outside the house. The whole neighborhood is talking about me and Gary. My husband was just too evil to make everyone witness what went down between us. The whole stupid town now knew I was cheating on my husband, and I became enemy number one. He was like the neighborhood dad, you know, the guy who played with kids, fixed their bikes, and always had a smile for everyone, so of course everyone loved him. I didn't see my husband for about a week after he walked out of me, and that week was hell. I couldn't walk the streets without teenagers throwing dirt at me. Everyone kept giving me the side eye. No one would talk to me, and some wouldn't even sell me anything. So I left the neighborhood. Update. It's been months since I left the neighborhood. I heard Gary left too. He couldn't stand the humiliation. I tried to reach out to him to apologize and check up on him, but he warned me to never contact him again and then blocked me everywhere. I was honestly dumbfounded, because he acted like I did this to him when he was the one who wanted me in the first place, without caring that I was married. And I was so pissed to hear him do that, like, why am I always the one who gets discarded in the end? I felt so small and powerless realizing that, like, everyone could just use me, enjoy me, and then throw me away whenever it suited them without a second thought. As for me and Harold, the divorce went through faster than I thought it would. He didn't even change his mind, no matter what I did or said. He got the house, the car, and somehow even the friends we used to share, because no one wanted to be associated with me anymore. I was a public disgrace thanks to Harold. I told myself I didn't care, that I'd start over somewhere new, but starting over feels different when no one wants you around. People talk and news travels. It doesn't matter where I go. Someone's already heard about the woman who cheated on the nicest guy in town. I thought the shame would fade once I left. Instead, it stuck to me. And that's the real punishment, knowing that Harold could pull that off, and then walk away clean while I can't escape what I did. I hated to know that he had guts and didn't mind destroying me completely, even when it meant burning everything we ever shared.